Everybody, January 26th, a devotional. Reading Psalm 26 today. Trying to read a psalm each day in many different versions and just reflect on it devotionally and what it speaks to me. And we talked a lot about in commitment and talking about commitment, about the path that we follow, the path that we walk down. And Psalm 26 in verse 1, it's David. And he says, "Declare me innocent, O Lord, for I have acted with integrity." That's a New Living Translation. Many others say, "I've walked with integrity," which is a common Hebrew expression. And to walk with integrity to them, integrity was living a righteous life, doing the right things. And walking with integrity was that habitual living in the right things. It meant that every day I'm doing the things that I'm supposed to do. And he says, I've trusted in the Lord without wavering. So I'm walking, and then my feet aren't slipping. And in trusting in God that I'm following the right path, I'm walking down this right way, I'm doing the right things. God doesn't let my feet slip from that. I trust Him to hold me to that. I trust Him to hold me in that path. So we talk about walking the right path and following God and committing to His way. I wonder sometimes how committed we are to just doing the right things. And I'm not talking about the laws. I'm talking about love. How committed are we to love one another? To love God with everything that we have? How committed are we to mercy, to walking humbly, to justice, to the things that matter to God? It's not just about did I follow did I manage not to murder anybody today? David goes through all these things. I'm not taking bribes. I'm not stealing from people. I haven't killed anybody. I'm not a hypocrite. But he then says, because of all that, and he's washed his hands, he comes to the altar of God. This is verse 7 and verse 6 to 8. And then talks about loving his sanctuary, the place where his glorious presence dwells. That walking with integrity will lead us into the presence of God. We don't live walking in that path without being in God's presence. And then what happens is David then asks for redemption, for God to show him mercy. Verse 11. Coming into the presence of God, we recognize the ways that we fall short. While we think we're living this righteous life, we think we're walking in the right path and we're doing the right things, we come into the presence of God and we recognize where we fall short. And so walking with integrity is not us saying I'm perfect and I do everything right and I never do anything wrong. Walking with integrity is living life being concerned with what matters to God. And that path will always lead us into God's presence continually. And as we're in God's presence, we get to see the things that, hey, here's where my feet are slipping. Here's where I'm not walking on the path. Here's the relationships that I'm not walking with integrity. Here's how I'm not walking with integrity in my workplace, or not walking in integrity in my parenting, or not walking in integrity with just who I am out in the world. And then when we're in the presence of God and we see those things that aren't right, we're able to say, God, have mercy on me. Help change me. Help work in me. Help make me something different than who I am. Help make me like you. As we'll see in this week, we'll talk, this Sunday, we'll talk about discipleship and talk about how that's the ultimate goal of discipleship, is to be like Jesus, is to become more like Him. So walking with integrity, walking in that righteousness, leads us into more righteousness. The more you walk down that path, the more you realize who you need to be, the more you realize where your feet need to be set. Because that's how he ends. Now I stand on solid ground. It's only in the presence of God, it's only with Him that we truly, our feet are firm. If we're following our own path and we're following our way and we're following what we think is right, we will inevitably, our feet will slip. because we're trusting in ourselves and we're trusting in what we do and we're trusting what we think is right. So if your feet are slipping, you're probably not walking down the right path. If your feet are slipping, you're probably trusting in yourselves instead of trusting in God. So the challenge today is to walk with that integrity, to live that life, live our lives the way that we should, to love, to seek justice, to want mercy, to give forgiveness and to seek forgiveness. But to recognize that the more we walk in that path, the more we see of how we're not walking in that path, the more we see what needs to change, the more we see what we need to do and be to become more like Christ, so that our feet are on solid ground, so we're not slipping and falling and stumbling all the time, but so that we're walking securely in His presence, securely in His love, securely in His grace. May you see that path today. May you walk with integrity, and may your feet be on solid ground so that they don't slip, not to the right, to the left, but you follow straight in that path to becoming more like Jesus.